Hello and welcome back to the piano lessons. We're on piece number 4. It's called The Code and it looks just like this. A lot of notes there. I believe I counted it and there's roughly 360 notes in this piece of music. You might be thinking, that's a bit much, We're only on piece 4, we can't be doing that sort of thing. But no, you can, and it's all about recognizing patterns, and I'm gonna walk you through it. What was that? And I'm gonna walk you through it throughout this lesson today. So if you actually want to pick up this piece of music yourself, I've put a link in the description. All you have to do is click on that, join my school, and you'll get the download link straight away, and you'll be ready for the lesson. But first, we should probably have a listen to the piece of music we're just about to play. So, here it is. Much like the last two, I didn't actually compose the backing track for these pieces. I made the music and my brother, who's just upstairs right now, composed the rest of it. So follow him on YouTube. I've put a link in the description below. Right. There are a few things that look slightly different compared to the last piece that we had, and that was Giants. We've got 3 flats at the start. We've never come across that before. We've always seen them in bars. We've got some letters across the top of the lines, and we've got a lot of stuff going on in the left hand, really. The right hand's looking pretty simple for A, it's getting more difficult in B, and C's looking dreadful, but honestly, it's fine. It's all patterns, you'll get it. So, those 3 flats, the reason why I put them in is to make reading the piece easier. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. So when you have 3 flats at the start of a piece of music, or any number of flats or sharps, that's basically your global rule. Global rule for any one of those notes to say, right, if you press this note, therefore it is going to be either a flat or a sharp. This is called a key signature. In the previous 2 pieces, I included E flats, and every time I wanted to include an E flat, I had to put a little symbol in. This sort of prevents that, and because I've got so many E flats in this piece of music, it's basically reduced the amount of ink I've needed to use, and it makes it far easier on the eyes to read. But while you might be thinking, well, in the last 2 pieces you included 1 flat, why have you gone for 3 this time around? Well, I don't really want to get into it because the theory is really confusing and I don't really have a great explanation, but to include the E flat in the way I've written this piece, I needed to include the other 2 flats. Now, when you're reading flats, if you're confused about how to actually read what they are, just imagine their notes and think, well, what notes would be on there? So if we read them from left to right, you've got a B, an E, and an A, if you look at those little flats at the start of the piece. You don't have to worry about the B and the A. If you think about it, where you're putting your hands, we can see that we're putting our thumb on C, like usual, our little finger on the C, an octave below, like usual. And if we cover the rest of the white notes with our fingers, we can see that our 3rd fingers are on E, so we've got to be a little bit careful about the E flat, so let's get that on there. But we don't actually have any fingers resting on A or B, and the whole piece, you're staying in one piece. So in reality, don't have to worry about it. Again, that raises the questions of why did I put that in there in the first place, but there's music theory reasons that I'm going to get into in a later episode. So, let's jump straight in. Look at the right hand. It's dreadful, isn't it? Just C's across the board. What have we got? 3, 6, 12. We got 24 C's to play on that first line, so make sure they're all nice and even, and then you're pretty much sorted. Keep your fingers just resting on all the notes as you go along. I'm not going to play all of them, that would be silly. In the left hand, we've actually got the main melody. Sort of a rarity. Most of the time you've got the right hand playing the melody. I've switched it this time because we've got to get our left hand a little bit stronger. If I play the first 4 bars, you can have a listen to what it sounds like just on its own without the backing track. Just goes like that. The key is to make sure that you're lining up those left hand notes with the correct note in the right hand. And you can do that by, and it sounds kind of obvious, you can do that by reading the music, but if you're looking at your fingers the entire time while you play, that's not really going to happen, because what you'll do is you'll look at your fingers, then you'll look back at the music, then you'll have to find out where you were, and then you'll see the note and you'll look back at your fingers again and you'll think, right, where are my fingers now? And it gets into a mess. It really does, very quickly. As we don't have to move our hands throughout this whole piece, we shouldn't have to look at them. So long as our fingers don't suddenly wander away, we should be able to keep them right there. So pay attention to the notes, don't look at your fingers, look directly at the music and just keep going and make sure the left hand is regular. You can see that we've got tied notes. We've got, I don't know why I'm pointing down here, you can't see anything, but in that first bar in the left hand, we've got a tied note. In bar 3, we've got a tied note as well, so they're basically going to be 5 beats long each because we've got a dotted minim followed by a minim. And then at the end of every 2 lines, we've got a crotchet. So it's that one that's really going to have to be careful when it's lining up. And at the end of section A, on that last bar, we've got some notes going backwards alongside the right hand. Got to be nice and even. None of this should be rushed. It's all 120 BPM, the same as the last few pieces. Just keep it nice and even and start slow when you're first practicing. I didn't turn on the lights. My little funky... Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. I love that little light. Anyways, what were we talking about? Section A, yes. So that's basically the fundamentals. The right hand you don't need to worry about, just keep it even. The left hand, be careful of the timing when you put it alongside the right hand and be aware of those E flats. If we look at line 2, the only thing we have to worry about is the right hand adding that extra G. Otherwise, it's just exactly the same timing, exactly the same rhythm. It's just those added G's in the right hand that make the difference between line 1 and line 2. Section B, we've got 2 notes being played at the same time in the right hand. We've got a C and an E flat. Same timing as before, this whole piece is about the crotchets. So keep it nice and even and nice and steady. Then the second half of that line, we're changing to C and D. It sometimes looks a little bit confusing to see notes that close together, but imagine blocking out one of them. Let's say there's your 2 notes, and you sort of hide one of them. You can work out that one, and then hide the other one, and then you can work out that one, and then you're fine. It looks weird, but in reality, it just happens to be very close together. And we'll be using fingers 1 and 2, keeping your fingers resting on the keys. In the left hand, same rhythm as before, but not the same notes. Just double check because the second and third notes in the left hand in that line are different, and the notes in the left hand in the second half also slightly different. So keep an eye out, but otherwise it's just the same timing. So let me play through that. Keep that left hand steady, holding on to that note. So now in the second line of section B, all we have to do is play an E flat and a G with our third and little finger instead of the C and E flat we had before in the first line of section B. Other than that, it's all the same again. That's the end of section B. Much like section A, take it slowly, hands separately first, make sure they're nice and evenly in time, put them together, and just be aware of when the notes line up. And of course, E flats exist, keep your eyes on the music, and don't let your fingers run around. I mean, there's a lot to think about, but if you can just get into the habit, a good habit, you won't have to think about them again, and you can just roll your eyes every time I say it out loud. As long as you actually do as I say. Section C is when it actually gets a little bit more complicated. I say that purely because there are added notes in the right hand that you just need to be aware of. The left hand has actually gone back to what we were playing in section A, so that shouldn't be too difficult, but that right hand is going to be the tricksy thing. We're playing pretty much the same chords as we had in section B with an added note on top. We've got, in that first bar of section C, a C, an E flat and a G. That's a C minor chord, hence the CM above the notes. Now I should probably talk about why those letters exist above the chords. So what you can do is when you see those, you can have a good idea of what the notes are going to be before you even read the notes. So when I see CM on the page, I know, right, that means C minor, and that also means that I'm going to be playing C, E flat and G. Therefore, there's a good chance those notes are going to be in the bar. It's almost like a little bit of a clue. A lot of people ignore the chords or don't learn them, but I feel like it's massively helpful sometimes for quick reading. And I've actually released an article on this and a video on music theory just on the chords that might be worth your time looking at if you're slightly confused. The C sus2 that I've written is again another chord. You've got 1, 2 and 5. That makes a C sus2 chord. Don't worry about it, watch the video if you're confused, which gives us C, D and G, and that happens to be exactly what I put in the music. So, first bar of C, we've got the C minor chord. Third bar, we got the C sus2, back to the C minor, sus2, then in our last bar, this is where it's probably the most difficult part of the piece and the most difficult thing we've done so far, is we've got 3 chords in a row. So what we've got is we've got C, D, G, C, E flat G, and C, F, G. It sounds really nice. It looks quite complicated on the page, but in reality, just take a look at what fingers I'm using. 1, 2, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 4, 5. The C and the G remain the same, and to be honest, all I'm doing is going up from second finger to third finger to fourth finger with that C and the G. Sounds quite nice. In the left hand, we're going in the opposite direction with F, E flat, D. So if we were to just look at the middle notes in the right hand, we'd have D, E flat, F, left hand F, E flat, D together. Sounds quite nice, it's called counterpoint. We'll get onto that later. And with the chords, we've got, sounds quite big, sounds quite impressive. Focus on that bar a few times to make sure that it's as smooth and succinct as the rest of it. So anyways, we've got line 2 of section C, and it's actually an exact repeat of line 1. So I'm not going to go through it, just make sure when you join those 2 lines, they're gapless. There shouldn't be any reason why I should notice that you've gone from one line to the other than playing a different chord when you get to the next line. And finally, we've got technically the 3rd line of section C, not much of a line, just 2 bars, very similar to Giants. When in Giants we had C and G in the left hand and C and G in the right hand. But now we've got C and G in the left hand and C, E flat, G in the right hand. So that C minor chord coming back, it's just a little bit fuller. And that holds down for 6 beats, and we're just going to count it as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Simple as that. So I should probably play you the whole piece of music. When you come to practice this, don't go from top to bottom. That would be silly unless you're confident with reading as it is. Go section by section, maybe even line by line, or even half a line by half a line. Chunking information is far better for learning than just trying to force yourself all the way through the whole thing, because it just takes too much time and your brain isn't designed to work that way. So, here's how it sounds without the backing track, just with me playing it. Here we go, keeping it nice and even and keeping our fingers, hopefully, where they're supposed to be. Hey, there we go. Nice. I'm quite happy with that. I was slightly worried I was just going to misread something or just get a wrong note, but yeah, it worked out. Play it just on its own for the first few times until you've got it to about 120 BPM, maybe even a little bit faster. You can always download a metronome app to do that. Once you've got it to the speed that I just played it at, you can then try it with the backing tracks. I've got the piano just playing it. That's a specific video. I've got a simplified backing track. I've got a complicated backing track with the piano, and finally a complicated backing track without the piano. So it's scaling scale of things starting with piano, simplified, complicated with piano, complicated without piano. That last one is just more challenging because you've got to do the counting yourself. You can't rely on hearing the piano in the background, and there are other instruments always going on playing different rhythms at other times, so you've really got to make sure you're counting and joining in with the music. So I hope that all made sense for you. I hope you enjoyed playing, or at least learning, the code. I'm quite happy with this one. Don't forget, if you haven't got the music yet, you can find it with a link in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this sort of thing, more piano lessons, more music theory, and more roll of the dice episodes. And I will see you in lesson 5. So, keep practicing, stay motivated, and I will see you in the next one.